about your recycling, your green recycling bin, what goes in it and what doesn't go in it. As Rob said, recycling is very important, but it's not the be all and end all. However many years ago that I'm too ashamed to admit, 15 years since I've been in the waste industry, recycling was it. But obviously, as people have realised that there are more important things, particularly around waste prevention, it's not taken a back seat. I think it's still very much, and it's the main thing that the public think about. But obviously, they're not always getting it right. So first and foremost, recycling. Everybody in Worcestershire has the same service. Everybody has a green bin unless they live in a hard to reach area where they would get a sack. I know that Malvern uses cherry sacks, Wychavon uses clear, Worcester City use green. There may be other permutations in other districts, but I think this is where people are starting to get confused because they see neighbours having recycling picked up in official bags going into the back of the bin lorry, so they automatically assume, oh right, we need to put our recycling into plastic. But all the recycling in your green bin goes to EnviroSort, which is our recycling sorting plant in Norton. And here it is sorted by a mixture of mechanical and hand sorting. Unfortunately, I had a video which was taken, which would have shown you the first process of the hand sorting, but I can't share it for some reason, but Rob's going to put it into the podcast. But it was also showing people how the contamination is actually pulled off when it actually arrives at EnviroSort, because the first thing that happens is it goes through a pre-sort hut as such, and they sort it, pull out the contamination, some of the contamination, and then it goes on to the main process. There is a video on the Seven Waste website. It's a cartoon, but it gives you an overview of how the different materials are actually separated when they get to EnviroSort, because the whole point of that is to separate your glass, cans, plastics from each other and put them into bales so that they can then obviously be sent off for reprocessing.
I wonder what happens to my recycling after I put it out for collection.
After your recycling is collected from your home, the recyclables are delivered to EnviroSort and loaded onto conveyor belts where the sorting begins.
Over 335,000 households in Worcestershire and Herefordshire are now recycling at home.
The first job is to sort everything by hand and remove the obvious things which have been put into the recycling by mistake. The recycling passes through a glass breaker where a series of rotating discs crush the glass. The fragments of glass fall through gaps between the discs. The other recyclables surf over the top and continue on their journey through EnviroSort.
If you recycle just one glass bottle, it saves enough energy to power a TV for a whole hour.
The recyclables then move to the ballistic separator, which separates the paper and card from the other items. The flat things, paper and card, move up the separator, and the 3D things, like bottles and cans, roll down it. The flat things are then sorted. The card can easily be picked off the conveyor, leaving just the paper.
It takes just 7 days for a newspaper to be recycled and come back as a new newspaper again.
The next task is to sort the 3D things from the ballistic separator. To separate the metals, there are magnets to remove steel cans, and eddy current separators that work like magnets in reverse to eject aluminium cans.
Recycling one aluminium can saves enough energy to power a microwave long enough to make more than 3 meals.
The plastics are separated using an optical sorter. These are special scanners which recognise plastics and use jets of air to blow them off the conveyor. The plastics which have been blown off then go through more optical sorters to separate the plastics into different types.
Recycling one shower gel bottle saves enough energy to toast nearly 3 rounds of bread.
The sorted materials pass through a final quality control to ensure they are fully sorted and free of contamination before being conveyed to balers, where it is squashed into bales, ready to be transported out of EnviroSort to reprocessors to be made into new products.
Over 70,000 tonnes of recycling is processed by EnviroSort every year. That's enough to fill 3,128 double-decker buses.
And that's how the recycling that goes into your container goes on to make new things. To help us make the most of your recycling, only include the right materials. We want your card, paper, cans, plastic bottles, plastic containers, cartons, glass bottles and jars. Make sure it's clean. Squash any cardboard so that it's flat. No need to squash your bottles or cans. You can even include your bottle lids. Just put them in the bin separately to the bottles. By doing this, the next bottle of squash you buy, the car you drive, or the paper you read could be made from material from EnviroSort. Closing the loop on recycling.
So, household metal packaging or steel cans, steel and aluminium cans. So, all the sort of, pet food cans, drinks cans, aerosols. Aerosols are often forgotten about because people don't think of them as metal. And also the big sweetened biscuit tins that you can get, particularly at Christmas, lids from jars, we'll take. The big thing to point out is no foil. We can't take foil because a lot of the time it's contaminated, and also Seven Waste tried to bale foil and it took them so long to get a bale together that it just wasn't viable to actually recycle it. So what we say to people is take it to your nearest household recycling centre, and it can go in the metal skip, believe it or not, with the discarded bikes and the sky dishes and things like that. People assume metal, so that's everything, your saucepans and things like that. Well, it's not. And it's not your fake foil, as I call it. So things like cat food pouches, crisps, sweet wrappers, and no gas bottles. You would not believe the amount of people that actually stick gas bottles into their green bin. We also take, obviously, glass bottles and jars. So that's your food, obviously your wine bottles and things like that. An interesting fact, actually, I found out just before this, recycling's gone up by about 12% in the last 2 months because of the lockdown. I thought I was contributing quite highly to the glass levels with the amount of wine bottles in my bin, but apparently it's more drinks cans that have gone through. So everybody's buying 24 packs of beer, obviously, and drinking that. But yeah, we are seeing quite a high increase in aluminium and steel drink cans coming through into our recycling, which is great because more and more people, I think, have also got the time to think about their recycling and sort it. And there are slight levels in contamination dropping, but not majorly. So, some good things that come out of lockdown. But anyway, I digress. So, yeah, you can even, if you've got a perfume bottle or a makeup jar or something like that, you wash it out, you can stick it in and it will be recycled. But it's got to be glass bottles and jars. Any other glass, drinks glasses, Pyrex, things like that. It may be glass, but it's a completely different sort of glass. Those sort of glasses melt at higher temperatures. So obviously we don't want those into the green bins. We also take cartons, so things like your Tetra Packs, as they get called, so milk, smoothies, soup, the sort of things that you can buy them in. You can remove the lids, or you can leave them as they are, flatten them, wash them out and flatten them, particularly these sort of things, because you don't want rancid milk, rancid custard and things like that floating around your green bin. Mixed paper and card, that's, it's a no-brainer really in some respects. Everybody gets lots of bits of paper and card, but the two things that we really say is we don't want glittery cards and wrapping paper. I mean, we do a lot at Christmas around the scrunch test. So if you scrunch it and it springs back, it's got plastic in it somewhere along the line, so it needs to go into your black bin. If it scrunches and stays scrunched, it's paper, so it can go in your green bin. We don't like contaminated packaging, so things like pizza boxes. I'm sure around St John's in Worcester they get a lot because of all the students. If you do have a pizza takeaway, you can take the top off because that's usually not greasy and things like that. And also we don't want things like the film and the packaging and the polystyrene that you get in your big boxes. We ask people to flatten those down, and then that obviously can go by the side of your green bin for recycling, and the crews will just pick it up and chuck it in the back of the vehicle with all the other cardboard. And this is where we get the confusion. Plastics. Oh, but it's plastic, so I can put it in my green bin. No, you cannot put that chair in the green bin. The things I've seen going around EnviroSort, and also when I worked at Birmingham City Council, it would make your hair curl. People assume because it's plastic, it can go in, but we ask for household plastic packaging, and the best way to think of it is bottle, pot, tub, or tray. So if you've got, if you've had some sort of liquid or food in it, then you can recycle it, unless it's black. Because black plastic, usually it's low grade, and also the conveyor belts at the recycling plants are usually black. And because they use optical sorters, they actually can't pick up black plastic. So we ask people to put black plastic in the black bin, but wash it out and things like that, because obviously, these guys are sorting this stuff by hand, so you don't really want them to have to deal with, contaminated stuff. And I'm not saying, you have to obsessively put it through the dishwasher like I do. A quick swirl does for packaging, and also your cans. A few baked beans left in a can is not going to contaminate a whole load. It's when you start putting whole tins of baked beans without the lid in your recycling that will contaminate a load. Again, we don't want things like your crisp wrappers, sweet wrappers, no hard plastics. So, your toys. And the biggest thing is no plastic bags. And I know, Peter, you had a lot of debate on your bit when you posted it about, well, hang on a second, I put my recycling in a plastic bag and the crews take it. The crews take it because they don't have the time, like Rob said, to stand and argue the toss with everybody.
They don't sort it, yeah.
They don't sort it. Their job is to collect it. It's a responsibility of the householder to make sure that what they're putting in the bin is clean and loose and dry. And loose being the important word. We don't want plastic bags, because when it gets to EnviroSort, it will more than likely be rejected, because the guys cannot see what's in the plastic bags, and they can't run the risk that it might have needles, broken glass, all sorts of stuff in it. So you put your recycling lovingly cleaned in your green bin in a Tesco's bag, and it just takes a very long trip to EnviroCover and ends up getting burnt. So this is, if there's one message we have to get to the public, is it's got to be loose, because they're spending all this time and energy, recycling it, and it's actually not being recycled. The other issue is they believe they're doing the right thing because the crews are taking it every week. Oh, I put my bin out, it's got everything in it, it must be right because they're taking it. And, there's a whole debate that's going on at the moment around tagging and contamination and all this sort of stuff. How do we enforce it? How do we educate the public? And, we're very much believers in education, not enforcement. I've run an enforcement team in Birmingham, and believe me, it's one of the hardest jobs in the world, trying to get people to actually, if you're fining them, and legally trying to get them to get it right. But we're getting there slowly, but yeah, it's the plastic bags that are the problem. And like that, people were saying on your thing, Peter, oh, well, I'll just buy a clear plastic bag. You don't need to buy clear plastic bags to put your recycling in. It's okay that the districts can give out clear plastic bags, because obviously the guys can see it when it arrives at EnviroSort. And we always say to people, if you've got excess recycling, either put it in a clear plastic bag or put it in a cardboard box. Because either way, it can be taken. The crews can see what's in it, and they can put it in their vehicle. If you put it in a black plastic bag, tie it up and put it by your bin, highly unlikely that it will get taken, because the crews will think it's rubbish. So we're getting there, but it is a long uphill battle when it comes to plastic, because it is so confusing. So that leads us on to contamination. Contamination is a non-recyclable material, and in our case, it's a material that isn't any of the ones I've just mentioned. Just a quick overview, percentage of contamination by district for a year. I'd been doing some analysis. The top 3 items that are our contaminants are clothing, food waste and household items. So as you can see, it's things like picture frames, saucepans, anything that people think, oh, right, I'll just put it because it can be recycled. Oh, yeah, you can put it to a charity shop. So if it can go to a charity shop, it can be recycled. Therefore, I'm going to put it in my bin because I know better than the council, and it will be recycled. So we have high percentages of the food waste and the clothing. As you can see in Worcester, over 40% of the contamination that came from their bins was clothing. This all, I think, goes back to the days when we first had curbside recycling, particularly in Worcester, where we had purple sacks. I don't know if anybody remembers those. We had purple sacks and we had clear sacks. And in the purple sack, you could put textiles. And I think people still believe that, oh, okay, we may have gone to a wheelie bin, but I can still put my clothing in. Which obviously they can't, because when we used to have sacks, it was all sorted by hand over at Hill and Moor. Now it's sorted obviously with a mixture of hand and mechanical, and you can't sort textiles that way. Food waste, again, people believe that they can recycle food waste because other parts of the country have them. My friend's got food waste collections in Derby, so I must be able to recycle my food waste. So people do that. So, again, we are still running at really high percentages of contamination. It's around about 20% at the moment. It has gone down slightly, like I say, during the last couple of months, I think, because people have got more time. So that says something, people want to do it right, but they may not have the time to do it. So that's where we need to make it, better for them and them to completely understand what's right and wrong. I've got some nice photos, I think, that you might understand. We split people up into 3 categories. But it's recyclable. You can recycle it, so why can't I put it in my bin? So these are genuine examples of materials that have been pulled out of loads at EnviroSort. So this one is clothing. You can see, someone has gone to a lot of trouble to sort their clothing out, put it clean in their recycling bin. That's gone to EnviroCover and that's been incinerated. So textiles is something obviously I'm really pushing to get people to recycle through the better channels than going through a wheelie bin. Then you've got people who are confused. So, this picture, the top left-hand one, is plastic bags. But, they've nicely packaged them together because they think it can be recycled. The top right-hand one, it's difficult to see, but it actually says recycle now and actually says this can be recycled. So if someone's read that and gone, oh, right, this plastic bag can be recycled, which is where councils and the waste industry are trying to work together with manufacturers to make it so that it's clearer, because you can't recycle that actual piece of plastic in a recycling bin. It's recyclable at other things, so things like supermarkets and those things where they'll take plastic. And the bottom one has got a little bit of foil in it. Again, someone's thought, oh, I'll recycle my foil. And what you've also got is polystyrene, which people think you can recycle. We have major problems with polystyrene as well. That and garden waste and electricals. They're the things that really cause problems at EnviroSort. Then we have people who think they can recycle their garden waste in their green bin. Why not? You get a bin for your garden waste, so just put it into your green one. And then the left-hand one has got plastic coat hangers because it's plastic. So therefore people think you can recycle them. But the irony of this picture is there is a green recycling truck, which is a toy that's belonged to a kid. And they've actually put the recycling truck in the recycling bin. I say no more. Then we have the just can't be bothered. They've got 2 bins. They'll just put whatever they want in whichever bin. So these 2 pictures and the following 2 are just examples of what gets pulled out. They sample at EnviroSort. So literally they will just pick a load and go, right, we'll take X amount of, kilograms of waste off this particular load. So this isn't representative of everything, obviously, that goes through EnviroSort, and we need to make that clear. And we need people to realise that it's not all like this. This is just a very small percentage, but they're great pictures which show the sort of stuff that people put into their bins, usually in black bin bags. We've got all sorts on this one. These are good. These are the nappies on the left-hand page, because people like to put nappies in their recycling bins for some bizarre reason. Not as many as they used to be, but still quite a lot. And then this other right-hand one is just, I know, we've got some envelopes and plastic bags, look, more nappies. So these are the people that we really need to get to, but then will they continue anyway? You just don't know. Redditch Council have tried some contamination education. It's worked for some, it's not worked for others. And then the final ones are what are they thinking of? The left-hand picture is actually a mattress that ended up at EnviroSort. Needless to say, the crews have been spoken to for both these pictures. They're both from Wychavon, actually, which, is something that they're dealing with. But somebody had put a mattress in their bin. And the right-hand picture is a load that was tipped from Wychavon last year, and over half of it was black bags and rubbish. Now, in the defence of the crew, it could be that they hadn't emptied the vehicle, but I think actually, no, that was what has been put in people's bins. So needless to say, again, their contractor is dealing with it, because we can't have that amount of rubbish arriving at EnviroSort, because it will just, it's a whole load that's been ruined, basically. So those that did recycle in all of that load, it's just basically going to get taken to one side and taken away for for burning. And that, I think, is that from me.
Can I ask about a few additional items regarding recycling? First of all, the cans. When a top comes off a metal can, either being pulled off or with a can opener, can that metal top go in with the metal cans as well?
Yeah,
it can do.
Yeah.
And next one is kind of the little trays that pet food comes in. They seem like kind of aluminium type stuff.
Oh, like Caesar and things like that.
Yeah, those things. Yes.
Yeah, that's foil, so that can be saved up and taken with all your other foil.
That can go in the metal at the tip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the small bottle tops from plastic or glass,
stick them in your recycling bin.
They can go in. And what if you've got? I've seen this on some, say, yogurt pots, where you've got a plastic pot, but you've got paper around the outside. It's like card or paper kind of stuck to the plastic. Yeah. Can they go in, or do they have to go in the black bin?
No, but it's a yogurt pot, so it can go in. If you want to take the paper and card off, you can, but you can just put it all into your green bin.
Sometimes it can be very hard to get it off.
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking. It should still go in the green bin.
Yeah, it goes in the green bin.
That's great.
It's a pot.
Thank you. Yeah,
the processes that it goes through when it goes off to be properly processed, that they wash them in certain ways and have them in vats, don't they? And they separate all these. It's like the metal cans. They use heat, I think, don't they? And the paper sort of wafts off and goes up and leaves the metal at the bottom.
Yeah. You don't have to take the can labels off or anything, because it all disintegrates when it's melted down.
I suppose if there's paper on a can, like say a baked bean can, and we'll have paper. If you take the paper off, I suppose that means the paper can be recycled as well, can't it? So it's probably better.
Yeah, but these very thin bits of paper, like, on your baked bean tin or those yogurt pots, because of the way that they commingle everything, sometimes they get wet. So, they may end up going through the process, they may not. It's difficult.
Yeah.
Did you say when you said you can leave lids on? When you said you can leave the lids on bottles and things like that, can you leave metal lids on glass jars? Yeah,
you
can. Like a jam jar.
Yeah,
that's because all right. So somebody there, a human, takes it off, does it, and separates it?
There's a little robot. No, because obviously, what you imagine, if you've got a glass jar with a metal lid, the first thing that happens when it goes into the back of a dust cart is it gets compacted. So the glass actually gets smashed, and then any glass that isn't smashed into small pieces, when it goes, the first thing it does as part of the process is it goes over a thing that smashes the glass even further, and it drops through. So the lid will carry on further up the tray, up the thing, and then the glass goes through. So yeah, you can put it on if you want, or leave it off and put it in separately. It's up to you.
Thank you everyone for joining us anyway.
Okay,
and,
then.
Look forward to seeing you someone next time.
Yeah, thanks people.
Have a good week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.